Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Dexter Liu, who is a retired product development specialist, expert, retired now, and also an immigrant who came here legally many, many years ago and is now an American.
Correct.
Okay. We were talking about the effects of illegal immigration on our country, our communities, basically. And that just coming in as illegal shows disrespect, I guess, to the rule of law.
It does. You know, I mean, depending on circumstances, I mean, some may be truly desperate. I understand that. But still, the consequence of that is our laws are being compromised. I mean, the country's sovereignty, indeed, is being compromised. Our security, national security is being compromised. Our economics are terribly being compromised. And, of course, it just raises the bar and turns the competition unfairly so. Because whereas you have people who worked hard to be here and be an American.
And stood in line.
Right.
And made out the forms and worked with employers or schools or whatever. But it's an enormous amount of time and effort and energy
it's a commitment
to come here legally. I know in the past, I don't know if it still exists, but you used to have a sponsor. Now, you had a company sponsor you.
I had a company sponsor, yes.
You could have a family sponsor you.
Yes, that's right.
But they became responsible.
Absolutely.
To make sure you had the wherewithal to stay
you
here
weren't a
and
criminal.
support yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. And, you know, you are there for a purpose. The reason the company sponsored me is because they valued my contribution, and they felt that it was unique enough to warrant sponsorship. So, you know, there are things that you work towards. I mean, they didn't come easily. You know, I worked hard for it, you know, much as I know many legal immigrants do.
They do.
And I think what we leave to chance, and when we create this slippery slope and allow those who actually haven't paid their dues to come in, regardless of their circumstance, to come in, what happens to that melting pot? They're not necessarily assimilating, and indeed, we know many are not.
Yeah.
You know, they really become problematic. And
they're staying in pockets in communities, develop a mini culture inside the larger culture.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, part of it, of course, you know, understandably, is because their status is checkered, shall we say. It's illegal. So they may want to hide that fact. And of course, increasingly, they're coming out in the open because there's so many people openly supporting this.
But let's talk again about the effects of illegal immigration on legal immigration.
And American citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
I think of the competition for jobs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
When our economy is not creating a multitude of jobs.
No.
There's competition for every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And if illegal immigrants, because of their status, come in and say, well, we'll work for free under the table,
right,
then the ones who come here legally,
yeah, I mean, obviously those of us who have gone through the paces of actually going through the process and then naturalizing, and I've been a businessman. I actually have been involved in several business ventures prior to retirement. And I'm hypersensitive, obviously, to the workforce and what it's doing to our workforce. And you know, I just don't buy this notion that there's jobs that Americans will not take. I simply don't buy that notion. And you know, and I think it's really just a poor excuse to actually bend our rules, as it were, and to allow this to go on. Because the fact of the matter is, there's plenty of people who want to work, okay, given the opportunity. And when you have a situation where, and you know, I wasn't one of those employers. I mean, actually, my businesses were business to business. We were basically a service industry supporting large corporations and branded companies. But where you have a consumer-based retail type situation like fast food, the fast food industry and the farming business and so on, and where you do need perhaps less skilled labor.
Sure, unskilled in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Just show up.
Absolutely.
That's right.
I mean, the entry-level types of
gardening.
work. What happens to our teenagers? You know, what happens to those who really desperately need, like a wife whose husband's perhaps not pulling in enough, and she would like to work at a fast food restaurant just to supplement the income of the household. Now all of a sudden she's being boxed out.
Sure.
You know? So those are the problems.
It's competition for jobs.
Yeah.
You're right. Not only among immigrants, but also regular citizens.
Yeah, exactly.
The teenagers who need that first job to get started with their lives.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also the competition for government services.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
The health care,
the schooling. I mean, what we pay in public schooling. And you know, we have already challenged budgets to run these schools. And that's where our tax dollars go to. And every school year, they have to wake up and say, wait a minute, we have to, by law, we have to accept these students who actually weren't here last year. They don't actually belong here. But by law, we have to educate them. So what does that do to, it blows up the state budget.
It blows up the budget of the communities. Then it's also more expensive schooling because it is English as second language.
Correct.
Training, different kinds of problems that confront schools.
Right.
I also think in terms of the competition just for housing.
Sure.
We know that it's in short supply in many of our cities. When it's in short supply, the prices go up.
Right.
Right? So families are having a hard time finding adequate housing for their families as a result.
I think just as with entry-level type positions, it challenges the housing market in a respect that most people don't talk about, because the people who are hurt the most are the ones who can ill afford it. You know, those who can afford it, it doesn't affect them so much.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I agree with you. Illegal immigration hurts me and you less than it hurts the poor.
Exactly.
Who need those entry-level jobs.
Exactly.
Who need the government support.
Supplemental income.
Yeah.
Have a teenager work.
The inexpensive housing or the supplemental income.
Right.
It really does hurt the poor more. And yet when you talk about it nowadays, it's become like you become demonized if you say anything against illegal immigrants. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed that quite frankly, because I respect our laws, I am amazed that it's so open and out there that illegal immigrants will come and rally in the State House.
I am absolutely stunned by that as well. I mean, the open and the openness of disobeying our rule of law is rampant, and yet there are those who willingly accept it. I am absolutely befuddled, because as an American now, I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's so great to be an American, because you can always count on our rule of law, or at least we did.
We used to. It just, again, it's just, we have to have a respect for the process, because it protects everybody.
Correct.
Including the new immigrants that are coming.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And to do anything less, we shouldn't be demonized for saying, hey, let's do it the right way.
Right.
Because we're just trying to protect what's unique about us.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.